In this video, we're going to be talking about solving percent problems. So we're just building on the things that we talked about yesterday and the things that we've been talking about in our bell work. So first we have a couple of vocabulary words. The first one, proportion. It's when you have two equal ratios or equivalent fractions and you set them equal to each other. So for example, we know that 1/2 is the same as saying 2/4. So that's a proportion, 1/2, 2/4. And of means to multiply. So 25% of 40, like we're going to see right here, means to multiply the 25% by the 40 to get our answer. So we're going to look at 4 different ways to solve percent problems. So this first one, we're going to use a diagram, like a double number line, to find what 25% of 40 is. Okay, there's always lots of ways to find things in math, and this is one of those ways. So this is set up to create a double number line. Remember, we saw those in our previous notes. We saw them on rates and unit rates. So these were our double number lines where we had miles on top and hours on the bottom, and the top and bottom works together. Okay, the same thing, except now you're going to be creating your own double number line. So they kind of have it set up. It looks a little different, but it's going to work. So the top is going to represent percent, and the bottom is going to represent our numbers. So if I'm doing percent, so I'm starting right here, this is going to represent 0%. And I'm going to have 100% clear up here because that's the most we can have. So we can have no percent, clear up to 100%. Our numbers are going to go from 0 to 40. And now we're going to fill in these lines to find how much 25% of 40 is. So if I look at my top number line, just that part, okay, to know what goes on each of these spaces or these lines, I'm going to figure it out. So I have 0 and 100. So halfway is 50%. So right here in the middle, I can write 50%. Okay, halfway between 0 and 50%, or 1/4 of the way of the total, is going to be 25%. And if I'm counting like I do with quarters, that's going to be 75%. So I'm just in 25% increments. So I have 0, 25, 50, 75, 100. Okay, we're going to do the same idea with our numbers down here. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit more so you can see these numbers. It's kind of small. Okay, so if I have 0 down here and 40 is my whole, half of 40 is 20. Half of that is 10. And halfway between 20 and 40 is my 30. So now I can see that these all line up. 0% of 40 is 0. 100% of 40 is 40. So 25% of 40 is 10. And I'm going to write that right there. That's my answer. Okay, so whenever we're finding a percent of some number, we're going to get another number out. Go ahead and pause and try that right here, and then come back and see how to do it the next way. Okay, hopefully you got that first pause and try finished. If not, make sure you pause and do it before you come on to this one. Okay, the second way that we can do this is we can use a ratio table to find our percents. So we have parts and whole. Okay, so part is the smaller part, so like 60% is the part out of 100% would be the whole. So 150 represents our whole right here. So we want to find the smaller number that represents 60% of 150. So we can use our ratio table to find that. We've been practicing ratio tables. So one of the ways that I can do that is I can write an equivalent ratio right here that I'm going to use to get to the 150. So first, let's look at, I can just divide these in half. So what's half of 100? It's 50. Half of 60 is 30. So if I look at just those pieces together, I can see that those are equivalent. 60 over 100 is the same as saying 30 over 50. So now I want to find the equivalent ratio or the equivalent fraction that has 150 in the denominator. Do you see how these just added together to make 150? Let's add these two together. 60 plus 30 is 90. So 90 is 60% of 150. That's kind of a neat trick with that. So go ahead and try it with this one. So 90 is going to be your part out of 100, and then 20 would be your whole over here. So you can simplify, figure it out, whatever you need to do to get from 90 over 100 to something equivalent out of 20. You can use this middle ratio if you need to, or if you're able to go straight from there to there, that's fine as well. Okay, so pause and try that one. Okay, hopefully you got that one done. The next way is we can set up an equation to find percent. So do you see how all of these are doing the same process, or they're using different processes to find the same type of thing? So this was 25% of 40, 60% of 150, 25% of 80. They're just different numbers, but it's the same thing. We're just showing you all different ways that you can use to get your answer. So this one we're going to set up an equation. So first I'm going to start by writing 25% as a fraction. We saw how to do that yesterday. I write that as 25 over 100. And of means to multiply, so I can multiply this fraction by 80. I can write that as 80 over 1 to make it a fraction. And then I'm going to set it equal to whatever this multiplies out to be. So I can cross simplify. 1 and 25 don't simplify. 80 and 100 do. If I simplify those, we can see that they both divide by 10, but they can also divide by 2, which leaves me with 4 on top and 5 on the bottom. Okay, it's also okay to simplify straight up and down. That'll be fine. We can do that now, or we can do it at the end. If I do it right now, I see that 25 over 5, those can both divide by 5, and I'm left with 1 down here, 5 on top. And now I'm ready to multiply. I've simplified everything I can. 5 times 4 is going to be on top, and I have 1 on the bottom. 5 times 4 is 20, and 20 over 1 is just 20. So 25%, or 1/4 of 80, is 20. Okay, go ahead and pause and try one like that. So set this up as a fraction over 100 and multiply it by 45. Okay, the final way that we're going to do these is we're going to set up a proportion to find. This is going to be a little bit different. What is 75% of what number is 72? Do you see how on all of these it said percent and then it gave us the whole value and we found something smaller? On this one, 72 is the 75% portion of some bigger number. We need to find out what that bigger number is. So we're going to use equivalent proportions like we saw right up here in our vocabulary to figure that out. So right here, 75 over 100, and I'll make sure that's on your screen there. Okay, this is where we want to simplify the fractions like we did yesterday. So remember, we have it over 100. We want to see how this can simplify. I know that these both divide by 25. Okay, this simplifies down to 3/4. So I'm going to put the 3 on top and 4 on the bottom like a fraction. Okay, and I know that the value I'm looking for, so I have 72 is the part, and I want to find some number. I'm going to represent it with x. So 75%, or 75 out of 100, or 3 out of 4, is going to be equal to 72 out of some bigger number here. So I need to figure out what this is. So I want to know, what did 3 multiply by to make 72? Maybe you know that off the top of your head, but if not, we can find that out by dividing. So if I divide 72 by 3, I'll know what I times by. So 3 goes into 7 twice. 3 times 2 is 6, and I subtract, I get 1. I bring down that 2. 3 goes into 12 4 times. Exactly, so I have no remainder. So I know that 3 times 24 is equal to 72. So I times that one by 24. So I'm going to multiply 4 by 24. And when I do that, 24 times 4, you can maybe figure that out in your head, but if not, we can do it this way. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 2 is 8. I got ahead of myself there. Plus 1 is 9. So I know that x is going to equal to 96. So 72 is 75% of 96. That would be equivalent to 3/4. So go ahead and pause and try that one. So again, you're using 75%, so you'll start out with 3/4 is equal to, your 48 is going to go right here, your x is down here, and figure out what you're multiplying by. Okay, so what does 3 times by to make 48? Okay, pause and try that. Once you're finished, make sure that you always ask yourself, I'm going to highlight around this, always ask yourself if your answer seems reasonable. Okay. At the college, my teachers always said, make sure you dummy check your numbers, okay? So dummy check means if you look at that, you have to see if it makes sense. So right here, 72, let me write this down here where you can see it nice and clean. 72 over 96, does that kind of make sense? So that would be, that might simplify down to 3/4. It does. What if I had gotten, maybe I accidentally left a 1 here, and maybe I got 72 over 24 instead. Let's pretend that's what I got. Would that make sense? Could that simplify to 3/4? No, because that one's too small. So that I would know that I messed up somewhere. I would go back and I would try it again. Okay, so always check your numbers and see if they seem reasonable, if they make sense. Okay, go ahead and try these. Finish them up if you didn't get them done. And come ask me your questions. Bye.